So if you're new to the watch game, I do not recommend buying a vintage Rolex. So before I kick off, I just want to say there's a link down below to my Discord channel. This is just for the watch community in general, not just my content. I don't have enough content to warrant that. I just wanted a place for people in the watch community that could chat together, even have voice conversations together, and just something persistent. Discord is just a chat server. There's clients for both Android, iPhone, or web browsers. This service will be completely free for as long as I'm running it. I'll never ask anything from you. You don't need a membership or anything like that. You can join anonymously. You will need an email address, but neither me nor anyone else on the actual chat will ever see that email address. So please stop by, say hi, share your thoughts, share some pictures of your watches. It's just there to have some more fun. Okay, so recently I stumbled across a 1980s GMT Master Pepsi. I sent the link to a few of my friends to get a little bit of an ego boost to hopefully get some of the courage needed to pull the trigger on such an expensive piece. But alas, I wasn't quick enough to actually catch it. But I did have one of my friends ask an interesting question. That was, once I get it, would I service it and have it polished up looking the way it did back in 1983? My friend is new to watches, and the answer to that is absolutely not. If I'm buying a 40-year-old watch, I want it to look like it's 40 years old. The whole unworn, pristine, mint condition, box and papers type thing, in my opinion, is really the battleground of speculators, people who have no real intention of wearing or enjoying the watch. And really, they're just trying to find the next person to offload that watch to as soon as they can, as soon as they've made some money. But you know, if I did want that look, to have a GMT Master as it was back in the day, 1980, walk out of the store after only having paid a few $100s, then I would say that's really what the Tudor brand is for. As an example, the Black Bay 58 is clearly and intentionally very much a Submariner Big Crown from back in the day. There's very little separating the two in terms of design. If I wanted a new look GMT Master, then that would obviously be the Black Bay GMT. It is far more a homage to those older GMT Masters than it is a substitute for the current Pepsi. And if you're interested in the Explorer 2, the 1655 Steve McQueen, Tudor can scratch your itch too there with the new Black Bay Pro. Tudor watches aren't literally identical to their historical counterparts that they're inspired by. They're clearly modernized, they have modern movements, modern materials. Tudor watches, the Black Bay range, all have 200-meter water resistance ratings, which far exceeds the official specs that Rolex has built at the time. But more importantly, you wouldn't put a vintage Rolex anywhere near water these days. But most importantly, you can actually buy these from authorized dealers. You do not have to find a seller and the right piece and make sure everything's good. There's really no risk when you buy one of these. In the past, I've been very skeptical of this type of design, the sort of the faux vintage sort of look for Tudor, especially the Black Bay 58. I kind of felt that if you want a vintage Submariner look, then you should just buy the vintage sub. And the only reason you'd be buying the Black Bay 58 is because you couldn't afford it. Well, the reality is, even if you could afford it, you couldn't wear your vintage watch like the way that you could wear a new Tudor, with its newer movement, cheaper serviceability, and quite frankly, water resistance. You can enjoy your Tudor pretty carefree, in the same way that you would have worn a Rolex back in the 80s. The proposition of wearing a vintage watch like a Beta now is just silly, quite frankly. They are a different animal, and you could easily justify having a Big Crown sub and a Black Bay 58 in the same collection. Including, you could even throw in a modern Submariner in the same collection, because between the three watches there is a significant amount of difference, and that all three belong in the collection is justified. Telling people new to watches to go ahead and buy a vintage Rolex is really asking them to walk into a minefield armed without a metal detector or anything like that. The reality is that every single piece is unique. Once you're talking about vintage pieces of their own histories, and you have to both buy the watch and the seller and vet the seller whether or not they're reputable. When I do make the plunge into a vintage piece, it'll be like my 7th or 8th or 9th luxury watch at that point, and certainly not my first. But is Tudor merely an homage brand now? Well, I have the Tudor Pelagos, and I think there's a few elements of the Black Bay Pro that tell us something about the future of Tudor's designs. But that's a topic of another video another time. Until then, please like and subscribe and comment down below. Until next time, see you around.